All right, today we're talking about the next important battle that took place after the fighting for New York. So, if you remember in the fighting for New York, Washington lost New York City to the British forces. General Howe and his army took control of New York City and had pushed Washington back and back and back and back, and finally took control of all of New York. So Washington, as we discussed in class, retreated and retreated and retreated, hoping to keep his army together. So we're going to talk today about the Battle of Trenton, where Washington takes some gambles to try to turn things around. And the most famous painting or image that goes along with the Battle of Trenton is this one right here, a painting of Washington crossing the Delaware. And it's not necessarily 100% historically accurate, but it's the most famous image of this battle. So let's talk about what went on. So after Washington got beat in New York, he and the army retreated all the way across New Jersey and then all the way across into Pennsylvania. And as we've discussed in class, his primary success was avoiding getting captured. He kept the army together and did not allow the British army to destroy the Continental Army. But as you can imagine, when you're retreating all the time, and every time you fight you lose just about, it damaged morale. So the soldiers in Washington's army were down in the dumps. Their morale was very low. They weren't confident about themselves. Things looked pretty bleak. The army only had about 2,000 soldiers in fighting shape. There were more soldiers than that, but a lot of them were sick and a lot of them were injured. Furthermore, supplies like blankets and food and warm clothing, bullets, guns, cannons were running low. The things you need to keep an army stocked and running were running very low, and winter was coming. So Washington knew he needed a victory, and he needed it for supplies, and he needed it to boost his men's morale. And he hatched a very intelligent plan to attack a group called the Hessians, who are those German mercenaries. They're German soldiers hired by the British. And in the winter of 1776, they were camped out at a place called Trenton, New Jersey. On Christmas night, Washington and his men got into boats and crossed the freezing Delaware River, which split Pennsylvania from New Jersey. They crossed back into New Jersey. This was important because up to this point, Washington had really only retreated. And this was the first time the Continental Army actually went on the attack and took the fight to the other side. Early the next morning, they surprised a large Hessian force in Trenton. The Hessians were really caught off guard. The legend is that the Hessians were drunk from partying all day on Christmas, and that really is just a legend. They really weren't drunk. But they were surprised, and Washington was able to take the town of Trenton. He captured 900 prisoners, and he got much-needed supplies and weapons. And this was the first big victory for the Continental Army. So while that did boost morale for the time being, it was a much-needed victory, it was still, in the grand scheme of things, relatively minor. It didn't, change the course of the war. It certainly didn't mean that the war was over, but it was an important victory because it boosted morale and kept Washington's army supplied. Yet by the next year, 1777, the British had gone back on the attack. They had captured the capital of Philadelphia, and they had forced Congress, which was meeting in Philadelphia, to flee. So Trenton is an important battle, but certainly not the most important battle by any means of the Revolution. because the British, at this point of the war, are really still in charge. But Washington has done a great job of keeping his forces together and keeping them intact.